Welcome back to the deep dive. So we're looking at something today that I think everyone listening has probably felt this exact painful moment.
Oh, yeah.
You're in a meeting, you're giving a presentation, a brief on a new strategy, you've got the slides, all the data, you feel prepared, you finish, look around and ask any questions, and you just get silence
Yeah.
or nodding.
The bobblehead effect.
Uh-huh.
Everyone seems to agree. Feels great in the moment.
Exactly. You leave that room thinking, nail it, we're aligned.
Okay.
Everyone gets it. You go grab a coffee, feeling, like a pretty competent leader.
And then what happens?
Well, 3 days go by.
Yeah.
And the emails start trickling in. And they aren't angry emails, not at all. They're just confused.
Questions that shouldn't even exist if they actually understood what you said in the first place.
Right. Questions that reveal your team is kind of moving in a completely different direction. It's this phenomenon, this post-briefing drift. And you're just left there staring at your screen thinking, was my mic off? Did I say that in another language?
Mm-hmm. It is the silent killer of execution. And honestly, most leaders, they handle it all wrong. The default reaction is just frustration. They assume the team wasn't listening or, maybe they aren't smart enough.
But today we're looking at this fascinating article by Christian Skierski. It was just published February 1st, 2026 for Frontline Leadership.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Contrast Framing, the space between what we say and what's heard. And his core argument is, it's a bit unsettling. He says the misunderstanding isn't their fault. It might actually be yours.
That is a tough pill to swallow. But Skierski, he builds a really compelling case with behavioral science. He argues this drift happens not because people are ignoring you, but because of how the human brain actually processes new information.
It's about the gap between just, acoustic hearing, the sound waves hitting the ear, and what he calls cognitive mapping.
Right.
So our mission today is to unpack the psychology of why smart people misunderstand clear instructions. And then we'll get into Skierski's solution, this contrast framing, to fix it. So let's start with the why. Why does the message land sideways?
To really get that, we have to look at what I'd call the vacuum problem. The human brain, it just abhors a vacuum. We literally cannot evaluate new information in isolation. It's cognitively impossible. We don't have a blank slate mode.
So when I introduce a new project, my team isn't just hearing the specs of that project. They're instantly, measuring it against something else.
Precisely. And this all goes back to the foundational work of Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman back in the 70s, specifically their stuff on anchoring and judgment under uncertainty.
Oh, yeah, the anchoring guys.
They found that the mind needs a reference point, an anchor, to make sense of anything new.
Right. It's like if I tell you a bottle of wine costs $20, you don't know if that's cheap or expensive until I tell you if we're at a gas station or, a five-star restaurant. You need that anchor to judge the value.
Exactly. Context creates the meaning. And here's the danger zone for leaders. If I, as the speaker, don't give you that anchor, your brain just supplies one automatically.
And you don't even know what's happening.
It's totally subconscious. They might anchor your new instruction against an old rule that doesn't even exist anymore, or a conversation they had at the coffee machine, or, and this is the most common one, against the way we've always done it.
And this is that cognitive mapping idea that Skierski talks about. It's not just hearing words, it's mapping that meaning onto the models you already have in your head.
Right. Think about a word like urgent. You tell your team, this project is urgent. You think you've been crystal clear. You're the boss. You said urgent.
Sure.
But urgent is a relative term, isn't it? To you, urgent might mean drop everything you're doing and have this done by 5 p.m. today.
But to an employee who's anchoring that against the last urgent project, which was maybe a 6-month grind, it could mean, okay, clear my schedule for the next 2 weeks.
Exactly. They aren't defying you. They're just adhering to the mental map they already hold. And Skierski points out that once that map is drawn in their head, even if it's the wrong one, it is incredibly resistant to correction.
It solidifies. It just becomes their truth.
It does. And this is where the article shifts from, abstract psychology to something really relatable. Skierski uses a parenting analogy that I think just nails this dynamic perfectly.
I highlighted that section. It's the classic clean your room dilemma. I mean, every parent has lived through that.
Oh, it is universal. He talks about asking his kid to clean their room. He thinks he's been clear. The child says, okay. He walks away feeling confident. But when he comes back an hour later, the room is still a disaster, at least by his standards. The clothes are just, shoved under the bed. The closet's a ticking time bomb.
The famous quick clean. We call it the panic shove in my house.
Right, the panic shove. Now, the parent's immediate reaction is usually anger. You didn't listen to me. You disobeyed me. But what Skirsky realized was the child did listen. They just anchored the instruction, clean your room, to the last time they did a quick cleanup before a friend came over.
So the parent was measuring against a standard of, like, sanitation and organization, but the child was measuring against a standard of visual concealment.
Perfect way to put it. Visual concealment. And because the parent didn't define the anchor, the child just picked the one that was most salient or maybe just most convenient for them.
And while that's just annoying at home, you just have to yell a bit and pull the clothes out from under the bed in a business, that kind of mismatch can cost millions.
It really, really does. It leads to missed deadlines, products that launch without key features, all sorts of problems.
Well, and this leads to what Skirsky calls the clarification trap, which I think is where most of us live. You realize the misunderstanding has happened, the drift set in, so you send that follow-up email. You know the one, just to clarify.
And that feels like wading through mud, doesn't it? It is just so much heavier than that first conversation.
It's exhausting. Why is that second explanation so much harder than the first one?
Because you're not writing on a blank page anymore. You are now trying to overwrite a narrative that has already set like concrete in their head. You have to break the old mental model before you can even start to build the new one.
And this brings us to the hidden cost of the drift. It's not just about efficiency. It's about trust.
Yes.
This part of the article actually surprised me. I usually think of these as just operational annoyances, but Skirsky argues it erodes the relationship between a leader and their team.
It erodes psychological safety. I mean, think about it from the employee's point of view. They thought they understood. They executed based on that understanding. They felt good about their work. And then the boss comes back 3 days later and says, no, that's all wrong. That's not what I wanted.
It makes them feel incompetent. Or worse, it makes the leader look fickle, like they just changed their mind.
It can be both. And this is where we have to bring in another heavyweight concept from Kahneman and Tversky, prospect theory and loss aversion.
Right. I remember this from Econ 101. This is the idea that we feel losses much more intensely than we feel equivalent gains, right?
Roughly twice as intensely, according to the research. So losing $10 feels about twice as bad as finding $10 feels good. So let's apply that to communication. When a team thinks they have a plan, when they have that sense of certainty, that certainty is an asset, they possess it.
They have ownership of the plan.
Exactly. When you come back to clarify, you are effectively taking that certainty away from them. You are stripping them of the plan they thought they had.
So they perceive the clarification itself as a loss.
Oh, yes. A loss of clarity, a loss of the time they invested going in the wrong direction, maybe even a loss of status. And because the brain fights so hard to avoid loss, they scrutinize your correction aggressively.
That explains the defensiveness. You send a gentle course correction and you get this 5-paragraph email back explaining why they did what they did. They're defending their sunken cost.
Exactly. Even a neutral clarification can feel like an attack. And Skirsky describes this vicious cycle. If you have to answer a follow-up that contradicts their internal anchor, it makes the whole foundation of the project feel shaky.
It signals to the team the goalposts are moving.
And once a team feels the goalposts are moving, they freeze. Timelines stretch. Decisions stall. They stop taking initiative because they're afraid of being corrected again. They start waiting for permission for every little thing.
So the whole process starts to feel untrustworthy. Not because the decision was bad, but because the initial framing was weak.
Precisely. You completely lose momentum.
Okay, so we've established the mechanism. The brain anchors to the wrong thing, usually the path of least resistance. We've established the stakes. It's wasted time and eroded trust because of loss aversion. So now we need the fix. Skirsky calls it contrast framing.
This is the big takeaway right here. Contrast framing is basically the antidote to that vacuum problem we talked about.
Okay, so how does it work?
Well, most people communicate by defining what something is. Here's the plan, here's the goal. Skirsky argues that to prevent drift, you have to explicitly explain what something is compared to what it is not.
You have to define the negative space.
You have to. You're using choice architecture. All this research on context effects shows that the way options are presented changes how we judge them. If you don't name the comparison, if you don't call out the old rule or the common assumption, you leave that space open for the listener's brain to just fill it in.
Okay, let's make this practical. Go back to the parenting example. How does contrast framing fix the dirty room problem?
Instead of just saying, clean your room, which lets the child anchor to that shove it under the bed model, you'd say something like, I need you to clean your room. And by clean, I don't mean a quick tidy up like we did when your friends came over last week. I mean a deep clean laundry in the hamper, books on the shelf.
You're explicitly killing the alternative interpretation before it can even take root in their head.
You're surfacing their invisible anchor and then rejecting it. You replace their default anchor with your specific one.
Let's try a high-stakes business context. The article mentions software migrations, or M&A. Let's do the software one. I think everyone hates changing systems.
Oh, everyone hates it. So let's say you're launching a new internal platform. A leader would usually just say, we're migrating to System X on Monday. It's going to be great for data integrity. Please watch the training videos.
Right, and your team hears new system. They immediately anchor that to, like, the last system we bought, which was maybe some app that was super fast and intuitive.
Exactly. So on Monday, when System X is complex and requires 10 clicks to save a file because it's more secure, they panic.
They think it's broken.
Yeah.
Or they think IT messed up.
Yeah.
And the drift begins.
Yep.
So with contrast framing, I would say,
Yeah.
Okay, team, we're moving to System X. Now, unlike our last update, which was all about speed and ease of use, this new system is prioritized for security.
Keep going. Define what it isn't.
It is not going to be the lightning-fast experience you are used to. It will require more steps to save a file. That is not a bug. That is a feature for our security compliance.
Boom. You just prevented the drift. You told them what it isn't. You explicitly said it is not the fast experience you are used to. Now, when they log in and it's a bit clunky, they don't panic. They think, oh, right, this is that security feature he mentioned.
That's powerful. You're managing expectations by, I guess, pre-disappointing them about the speed so they can focus on the actual benefit, the security.
Pre-disappointing is a great way to put it. You are controlling the reference point. Skiersky says you have to name the ghost in the room.
Okay, what about a merger? That's even higher stress.
Huge stress. If you announce a merger, the immediate anchor for every single employee is one word: layoffs, even if you don't say it.
Especially if you don't say it.
So contrast framing here is absolutely vital. You can't just say, we're merging to create synergy. You have to say, we are merging to expand our market reach. Now, unlike the typical mergers you might read about in the news, this is not a cost-cutting exercise. This is not about reducing headcount to boost margins. It is about growth.
You're actively fighting that loss aversion before it even has a chance to start.
You are taking the layoff anchor completely off the table so they can actually hear the rest of your speech. If you don't do that, they just spend the whole meeting wondering if they still have a job, and they hear nothing else you say.
It seems like such a small rhetorical shift, just adding that what this isn't clause. But it fundamentally changes the cognitive map for the listener.
It does. It forces them to abandon their default anchor. It aligns the mental models right away. It's efficient. And frankly, it's just kinder. It saves everyone the stress of all that repair work later.
Now, Skiersky doesn't just stop at contrast framing. He actually gives what he calls a syllabus for leaders who want to get better at this. The Frontline Leadership Library.
I love that he included this. It really validates that leadership isn't just about, soft skills. It's applied psychology. And he picked some real heavy hitters for the list.
Let's run through it briefly because they aren't random picks. First, obviously, we've mentioned him a bunch. Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman.
Yeah, that's the Bible of behavioral economics. Skiersky includes this so you can understand System 1 versus System 2 thinking. System 1 is that fast, automatic, anchoring brain. System 2 is the slow, logical one.
Right.
The problem is that leaders usually speak in System 2. They've thought about the plan for weeks. But their teams listen in System 1. They're just reacting in the moment. You have to read this to get that gap.
Then he lists Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath.
A classic. That book is all about stickiness, why some ideas survive and others die. It dovetails perfectly with contrast framing because the Heath brothers talk so much about concreteness, saying clean the room is abstract, saying no clothes on the floor is concrete. Contrast helps you get to that concrete level.
Then there's a bit of a curveball. The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt. That's usually about political polarization and morality.
Yeah.
Why is that on a leadership list?
It's there because of the trust element we discussed. Haidt explains that people filter all decisions through their values and their sort of tribal identity before logic even gets a look in.
So if my new policy feels like it violates the tribe's unwritten rules.
Exactly. If you come in with a new efficiency strategy, but your team identifies as craftsmen who care about quality, they might see your strategy as a moral violation, not just a business decision. They anchor against their identity. The righteous mind helps you see those invisible moral matrices.
That's a really nuanced take. It's not just be clear, it's know who you are actually talking to.
Right. And finally, crucial conversations.
Which is the manual for when the drift has already happened and things have gone wrong.
Yes. When you're stuck in that clarification trap, when emotions are high and safety is low, this book gives you the script to de-escalate. It's a repair manual. So if contrast framing is the vaccine, crucial conversations is the surgery.
So the library really covers the whole cycle. Prevention, thinking fast and slow, the technique, made to stick, the context, the righteous mind, and then the cure, crucial conversations.
It's a very complete ecosystem for communication. It stops you from viewing communication as just sending a file and makes you treat it like installing software in a human brain.
Which is a much, much glitchier operating system than we like to admit.
Oh, very glitchy.
So let's bring this all home. We started with that sinking feeling of the misunderstood email. We walked through the science, how our brains are these desperation machines just looking for an anchor to make sense of the world.
We talked about how correcting that anchor later triggers loss aversion.
Yeah.
It damages trust and makes people dig their heels in because nobody likes to lose their sense of certainty.
And we landed on the solution. Contrast framing. Don't just paint the picture. You have to define the frame. Tell them what it is not.
It's a simple tool, but it saves so much pain. Because, as Skiersky puts it so well in the article, by the time you see that confused look on their face, that look that says, "That's not what I thought you meant," the work isn't communication anymore.
It's repair.
It's repair. And repair is always more expensive than building it right the first time.
Always. You pay double in time and you probably pay triple in social capital. So here's the challenge for everyone listening today. The next time you are preparing for a conversation, whether you are briefing a board of directors on a complex merger or just asking your teenager to empty the dishwasher, just pause.
Ask yourself, what is the invisible reference point my listener is probably using right now? What are they assuming this is like? Are they assuming this is like the last project that failed? Are they assuming this is a punishment?
And then just say it out loud. This is not like the last merger. This is not a quick tidy up. And by the way, this is not a punishment.
Kill the assumption before it kills your strategy.
Because if you don't frame the contrast, their brain will absolutely do it for you. And trust me, you probably won't like the result.
You really won't.
That's it for this deep dive into contrast framing. Thanks for listening. Go frame some context.
See you next time.